Welcome back to Unsolicited Feedback, the podcast where we cut through the noise, skip the corporate jargon, and get real about what actually drives results. Because let's be honest, hope is not a business strategy. I'm your host, Chuck Knabusch, the operations guy, and after 40 plus years across the military, corporate America, and now entrepreneurship, I've seen what works, what breaks, and why leadership, planning, and execution are the great separators between average and exceptional results. As you're catching the replay, send your thoughts or challenges directly to me at chuck@1310.com, chuck@13ten.com. Hey, your time matters, so let's jump straight into today's topic. The unsung backbone, why operational leaders carry companies, and how to finally support them. Most businesses celebrate the visionaries, the charismatic CEOs, the rainmaker sales executives, or the product innovators. But behind every strategic dream lies an operational reality, and that reality is carried on the back of operational leaders, whether COOs, VPs of operations, directors, plant managers, supervisors, the people whose names are rarely on the posters, but whose fingerprints are all over the results. Operations is the engine of every organization. When it runs flawlessly, no one notices. When it stumbles, everyone suddenly becomes an expert. Today we're diving into why operational leaders carry the heaviest load, why their challenges are often invisible, and what organizations consistently misunderstand about execution. This isn't just a conversation. It's a reality check. And if you're an operational leader, this might feel, a little too real. So here's the biggest problem. Operational leaders carry enormous organizational weight, but operate in chronic invisibility and unrealistic expectations. Operational leaders, from the COO down to the frontline supervisor, are expected to keep the business running, prevent disasters, improve efficiency, protect margins, solve fires in real time, keep people safe, keep customers happy, innovate processes, and hit every KPI, all while staying low drama, low maintenance, and low profile. In most companies, operations is expected to be perfect and quiet. You only get attention when something breaks. A Harvard Business Review study found that operations leaders handle up to 70% of all unplanned organizational problems, yet receive only a fraction of the strategic visibility. Gallup data shows frontline leaders, especially in operational roles, experience some of the highest burnout rates of any leadership role. Operational excellence is so good at hiding its own complexity that it trains organizations to believe execution is easy. When operations succeed, it looks smooth. When operations fail, it looks incompetent. That asymmetry is the core problem. So what are some of the biggest symptoms of this problem? Operational leaders feel stretched thin, under-recognized, and constantly in firefighting mode. Most operational leaders report feeling like they're holding the company together with duct tape, overloaded with simultaneous priorities, constantly pulled into crises others never even see, expected to fix poor planning upstream, invisible unless something goes wrong, like they're carrying the consequences of everyone else's decisions, and responsible for outcomes without having authority over inputs. And here's the killer. When operations makes magic happen, absorbing bad forecasts, labor shortages, supply chain surprises, no one sees the cost. A VP once told me, every department gets grace except operations. We only get measured. So these symptoms show up as chronic burnout, high turnover in supervisor or management roles, decision fatigue, slow improvement because leaders have no time to improve, execution drift, confusion about priorities, KPI volatility, and ultimately cultural frustration. If you've ever seen a supervisor staring at a report at 6:45 p.m., knowing tomorrow will be worse, you've seen the symptom. So what do most people try to do to fix this problem? Well, the first common fix is add more tasks, more meetings, more reporting. Some leaders think operations isn't hitting the numbers. Let's add a dashboard. Let's add a meeting so we can stay aligned. Or let's add another initiative. But here's the reality. Operational leaders already have more inputs than bandwidth. Adding more tasks to overwhelmed people is like giving bricks to a drowning swimmer. Common fix number 2, tell operations to work smarter, not harder. This is typical code for, we don't know what's wrong, so we'll give you a slogan instead of support. Work smarter without system, staffing, or training is just work harder while pretending we helped. Common fix number 3, hire a new tool or technology and declare victory. Software does not fix operational dysfunction. It accelerates it. Technology without process discipline is simply chaos at scale. Common fix number 4, push accountability downward instead of fixing the system. When operations fall short, the most common move from leadership is hold your people accountable or raise expectations. Push harder. Ever hear any of those? But 70% of performance issues are system-driven, not people-driven. And that was by W. Edwards Deming from years ago. When the system is broken, accountability becomes punishment. So why do these fixes rarely work? Well, the first reason is they treat symptoms, not root causes. Reporting does not improve throughput. Meetings do not improve scheduling accuracy. Slogans do not improve morale. And software does not fix bad planning. Most solutions add noise instead of clarity. Here's the second reason. No one outside operations understands the compounding pressure. Here's what most executives don't see. Every late decision becomes an operational emergency. Every unclear priority becomes an operational guessing game. Every surprise becomes an operational burden. Every staffing shortage becomes an operational crisis. Every KPI misalignment becomes an operational argument. So you rarely see sales or finance absorbing the same level of real-time consequence. Operations is the shock absorber of the entire organization. Reason number 3, operational leaders are expected to succeed with tools they weren't given. You can't execute without clear priorities, stable planning, realistic forecast, adequate staffing, defined processes, cross-functional alignment. Yet operations is expected to deliver world-class results, even when the inputs are not world-class. It's the equivalent of asking a NASCAR pit crew to win races using lawn tools. Reason number 4, organizations misunderstand the cost of operational burnout. Burnout in operations doesn't show up as emotion. It shows up as increased downtime, reduced throughput, higher scrap, employee turnover, quality misses, customer complaints, slow improvement cycles, or safety incidents. McKinsey reports that burnout in operational leadership roles increases total cost of operations by 15 to 25%. Burnout is not a personal issue. It's a financial one. One thing that we can do to actually move the needle, the one thing, establish operational clarity, the foundation every operations leader needs but rarely receives. Operational clarity means clear priorities, no more than 3 to 5. When everything is a priority, nothing is. Operational leaders need a scoreboard, not a scavenger hunt. 2, a stable planning system. This includes realistic schedules, transparent constraints, cross-functional alignment, reliable demand forecasting, and defined escalation paths. Without stable planning, execution becomes a hostage situation. 3, define roles and decision rights. Confusion slows execution more than bad news. Operational leaders must know what they own, what they influence, what they must escalate, what they can decide immediately. Clarity is oxygen. 4, the authority to say no to non-value-added work. This might be the most counterintuitive part. Operational excellence requires subtraction, not addition. Leaders must protect operational bandwidth, like sacred territory. 5, build margin into the system, not the people. Systems must be able to absorb volatility. People shouldn't have to. Operational leaders have built entire careers on being reliable, resilient, and resourceful. They don't ask for recognition. They don't ask for applause. Most don't even ask for help. But here's the truth. Organizations rise or fall on operational leadership. If you want predictable results, you must build predictable systems. And if you want sustainable performance, you must protect the people who produce it. Operational leaders are not the shadow workforce. They're the backbone. And it's time companies started acting like it. Hey, and that's a wrap for today's episode of Unsolicited Feedback. Thanks for joining me, but don't just nod along. Apply something from today's conversation. Because results don't show up just from listening. They show up because you did something. Even one small action this week will move the needle farther than a month of good intentions. If you want to go deeper, scan the QR code or schedule a 30-minute strategy chat. I'd love to hear how you're using planning, leadership, and execution to make sure hope never becomes your business strategy. Drop a comment and like the episode. I'm Chuck Knabusch. Until next time, stay focused, stay disciplined, and don't you dare rely on hope.